cinema, enter a fox. I fell into a mid-afternoon gloom and decided that a film might help, might even animate me. I looked in the Standard. I checked up on the gate. Oh, this is my local cinema, the cinema I've been popping into every week for about 15 years, and saw that a film called Run, Lola, Run was on there. Well, I picked up bits and pieces about this film, had some idea that it had received generally favourable reviews. Suspected that one of these might have come from the Standard itself. But in spite of that, I decided to give it a whirl. I trudged to the bus stop on Holland Park Avenue and waited for a bus to Notting Hill. It was then about 5:15. The programme began at 5:20 and the film, therefore, I guess, at 5:30. The bus trip would take 5 minutes at the very most, so it was okay for time, or would have been if a bus had turned up within the next 15 minutes, which it didn't. So, at about the time the film was to begin, I began to walk up to Notting Hill, my first steps coinciding with a small smattering of rain. Now, fortunately, I'd remembered to bring my hat, a furry, leathery thing I bought in a shop that sells motorcycle equipment. I have to wear it, or something like it, in London rain, which otherwise poisons my scalp, bringing it up in lumps and filling my hair with large, flaky, dranduffery, white, murdered skin. It must be one of the many consequences of an operation on my intestines. I go into all this about the hat, but it wasn't some luxury feature or fashion accessory I was wearing on my head. It was a medical necessity because I suspect it played a part in what follows. All in all, and with a growing sense that I wasn't going to make the beginning of the film, it was a miserable little journey, and no doubt I cut a miserable little spectacle when I finally presented myself at the ticket counter, behind which was a young man, black, handsome, smilingly alert, who'd obviously been exchanging jokes with an entourage of friends or colleagues who were lolling around in the foyer. I asked him how much of Run, Lola, Run I'd missed. About 15 minutes, he said. Now, he had a nice voice, if a touch actory. Not to say camp. A dab of camp to it, yes, but friendly in effect, if not, as it turned out, in intention. 15 minutes. Oh, but I don't mind, I said. I do, he said. Now, I took this for what it wasn't. The sympathetic sharing of the disappointment. Well, anyway, I'll buy a ticket, I said, fumbling pocketboard. No, you won't. His smile going all round the lobby to friends and colleagues. What, I said? Really and truly not understanding this perfectly simple sentence. It's too late, he said. Now, if you'd come a few moments earlier, I might have considered it, but I'm not going to disturb my audience now, not when they're just getting into the film. Now, his manner, I must report, in all fairness, was in no respect rude. In fact, it was full of, well, it was full of joie de vivre, and much appreciated by friends and colleagues. Now, there was a lot I could have said about this, beginning with audience. I mean, what audience? At 5:20 in the afternoon. And to what would you have done if I'd pre-booked and prepaid my credit card on the phone, with lots of stuff in between about international law and human rights? I didn't say anything until I was going out through the doors, and I mumbled some words over my shoulder, the only distinct one being probably fascist. Pathetic. So, what was it about me? What had he seen, that young man, so smiley and shiny and confident, that had tempted him to making me a butt for his little comedy? Now, that's where I believe my hat comes in. Could it have been my hat, which made me resemble some debris left over from the day the Berlin Wall fell? Or was he simply sexist, and ageist, seeing before him an elderly, white, and, but not ostentatiously, I do believe, heterosexual. There are times when one has to take action. The next day I discover the name of the manager, a woman called Lynn. I then composed a long, poignant letter detailing the events related to the above, and received the next day, or the day after, an urgently apologetic fax that left me a feeling, after several readings, both triumphant and humiliated. Humiliated because, well, because I'd wasted several hours of my shortening span on a matter that a nobler man would have brushed from his memory in a moment after hitting the pavement in the rain. But the power of rancor, spasms of energy induced by a grudge. Shaming, really.